Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. We've been bothered by this thing for a while now. My name is Alejandro Ortiz. I live in a mountainous area of New Mexico. I have 3 brothers and sisters, and I live with my mom and grandmother. We've lived in this house for about 2 years, and the next thing I'll talk about happened around that time in 2020. It's pretty cool to live in this area. The only strange thing we see are a few red lights at night, but that's about it. But there was something strange going on near our house, and something or someone was walking around our house. We thought it was someone stealing. At night, you can clearly hear those footsteps, and our trash can always falls to the floor, so we have to go outside and see what's going on. But when we do, we see neither animals nor people. My mother blamed me for leaving the trash can on the floor, which caused a big fight between me and my siblings. I told my mom that it wasn't me, that it was something else. She didn't believe me, though. I told them, okay, I'll show you that it wasn't me. So I stayed up every night to find out what was going on because it was bothering everyone in the family. I believe it was around noon. When I went outside to see who it was, it turned out to be a Bigfoot. He put his hands over his eyes and did strange things because the light hurt them. He had brown hair all over his body. His nose was flat and wide, and his eyes were dark. He was about 7 feet tall and very muscular. I screamed so loudly and said, "What the F?" before dropping the flashlight. It took me a while to figure out what to do. The Bigfoot looked at me like he was saying, "Okay, you got me now." I went upstairs and told my family that I had seen the person who eats food from our trash can. When we went back outside, he wasn't there. How did he get away so quickly? This isn't the norm. My grandmother asked if it was an animal. I said no, it was a human-like being who stood up like we do. My grandmother told me to draw this creature. So I drew it, and my grandmother yelled, "It's the big guys." I said, "What was big?" "It's our version of Bigfoot. They're the big guys. We are related to them. We've known them for a very long time. They have always lived with us on Earth, but in caves, they are usually friendly but shy. Not much sets us apart from them. We wear clothes and they don't, and they can do things we can't. That's the only difference. One of them is mind speaking, telepathy, and disappearing and reappearing." My grandmother put an apple outside her house with a note that said, "This is your last meal. Don't return." The next morning, when I got up and went outside, I saw that both the letter and the apple were gone, and the Bigfoot never came back. July 2004, thank you. New Mexico's Otero County. About 11 o'clock. My sister-in-law ran into my mother in-house laws from the outside and told her that she had seen something very tall walking on the trail below the house. She said it was walking back and forth on the trail below before it came to the house and stood at the corner to watch them sitting there. Then she and her friends ran inside and told me that they had looked out front but hadn't seen anything. So, they went to her room. After that, my girlfriend and I stayed in the living room and watched TV until we heard noise in the dining room. I asked what it was. She said, "I'm not sure." So I got up to see some of the girls come out to find out what was making all the noise. It was like someone in the room was throwing things around. When I got to the dining room, I saw a big hand reaching through the window. It reached across the table next to the window and took a bowl of food out of it. We were all scared, so I called the wildlife office. After that, nothing else changed. This thing has been in our town of Mescalero for the last 2 or 3 years. 2 years before that, around midnight, a Bigfoot followed my brother-in-law home from a friend's house. He saw it about 150 yards down the road. He was afraid, so he ran home. He started banging on the door when he got there. He didn't know it had followed him, but when they opened the door, he turned around and saw the Bigfoot standing about 10 feet away and looking at him. After about 5 minutes, the thing left, according to my brother, who ran inside. About a year ago, it was seen again at the same house. When my mother-in-law went outside to take down her clothes from the line, it was snowing. It was somewhere around 8 a.m. She saw 2 sets of tracks, a big set and a smaller set that looked like it went with a smaller set. Between the house and the clothesline, the tracks went. Some of her clothes were on the ground, and the tracks led to the trees below her house. I now live in a trailer home on the side of the road. A mile away is the next house. I once heard very loud screams. One night, my girlfriend and I were here without power and no dogs were going to bed when we heard a sound like a rumble on the side of our room, which was 1 canyon over from where we live. Someone must have hit our trailer with a car. Only once did it happen. I thought it was a Bigfoot because that's what people around here say they hear. There are a lot of trees below and between the first house and the second. My trailer is on a hill above Highway 70 in a very bushy neighborhood. In August 2004, there were a lot of pine trees in the valley. New Mexico's Otero County. I went outside around 5 a.m. to feed my dogs. I was trying to find my dogs. They were found under my house. They began to bark in the direction of the back. I went inside and looked out the back window. I've seen something looking right at me. It was tall, big, hairy, and had red eyes. I looked at it for quite a while. My wife also came to see it. She was so afraid. She told me not to take my son to school the next day, and that night, the dog was howling. My son had the truck but was still at his friend's house. My son ran to the door and slammed into it hard while yelling, "Dad, please let me go. Dad, hurry up." I opened the door and my scared son fell down. He said he saw something walking on the dirt road, and when he got out of the truck, things started running after him. After what he saw, my son said he won't walk around at night. About 3 miles down the road, there was an accident. While I and my friend went to work, both of our wives stayed home. They said that a tall, hairy Bigfoot was looking in the window at them. My wife was scared, and so were the dogs. She called my cell phone and told me that she, her neighbor, and a baby were in a closet. She said that they could hear it growling and stomping in June 2000 in Otero County, New Mexico. My mother woke up because the dogs were barking very loudly. So she got up and went upstairs to check on the kids on her way back down. She looked out the window by chance and saw this dark figure walking up the road. She couldn't see it very well because trees were in the way, but she could hear it grunting because the window was open. About a week before my mom saw it, all the dogs in the neighborhood were barking and crying. My aunt was also woken up by the dogs, and when she looked out her window, she saw it go into the trees behind her house. She lives in the house next to ours. After my mom has seen it for a few weeks. I saw it when I woke up at 3 a.m. and looked out my window, which is right next to my bed. My room is also on the 2nd floor, so I got up and saw it walking up the road. My window was open, and the smell that came out of it made me think of something dead or rotting. It was about 7 or 8 feet tall, black, and had a kind of point on the back of its head. When it walked, it looked a little hunched over and its arms moved on their own. It was about 8 feet away from an orange streetlight, so I could see it well. I watched it walk up the road, but I couldn't see it once it got past the trees. I ran downstairs to wake up my mom. She came to my room and sat with me on my bed. The dog started to bark again when it got back to my house. So we just sat on my bed and looked out the window at the ditch by the road. We can see the shape of it through the trees. It looked like it was playing with a can or something. People who have seen it tell us a lot of stories about it. Our neighborhood isn't that big, and it's only been there for about 10 to 15 years. It's also in the mountains. A woman saw it looking in her window, and another man said it was chasing him. My uncle saw it going through the trash of a neighbor. People have seen it cross the road or walk back into the trees. We hear a lot of stories, but I think people see more than they tell because they don't want people to think they're crazy. I know, because I was like that in August 1997. New Mexico's Otero County. In the first incident, two sisters were on their way to pick up children for a birthday party from their mother's house. As they turned onto the dirt and gravel road that led to the house, they saw something sitting on the left side of the road. When the car lights hit it, it stood up to a height of 7 feet or more, based on how high it looked. One sister wouldn't even look at it. After one look, it was said that the eyes looked red in the headlights. It had hair all over, a kind of pointed head, long arms, and no neck. It went in the direction of the river. After turning into their mother's driveway, the sisters didn't see it again. They were scared, and they knew it wasn't a bear or a person. Next, in August 1997, my husband and I went to see our adopted family. When we got there on August 21st, we parked our pop-up camper by the river and behind the brush arbor across the driveway from Grandma's house. Her son and his family live next door to her. Her son and his son were away, but his wife and daughter were at home. On August 21st, we set up Camp 8, had 8 people over, and went to bed early. Around 11 p.m. I was the only one awake, and I was just about to fall asleep when I felt a strong jolt to our camper, which made everything shake. I thought it might be a horse or cow, but it hit higher than a horse or cow, like at the roof line. I was too scared to move, but I didn't know why nothing else happened. So I went to bed and told my husband about it the next morning. On Saturday, August 23rd, about 20 of us cooked and ate outside. After cleaning up, we all sat around the fire in the brush arbor and talked with old friends as the night got cooler. I was talking to someone far away, and I vaguely remember hearing something that sounded like a baby crying. "Did you hear that?" asked the little girl sitting next to me. I told her I hadn't heard anything, and she said that strange sound. The adults stood up right away and told the kids to go home because it was time for bed. No matter what it was, they all heard it. My husband and I, along with our 2 little granddaughters, stood there for a while and wondered what was going on. We then went into our trailer and went to sleep. Almost the whole night, the dogs barked and howled. The next morning, Sunday, August 24th, I got up and went to the house for coffee. Everyone in the family was already there and talking. I listened for a while, and what they were talking about was interesting to me. So I asked everyone what was going on. Dead silence. I joked that it sounded like they were talking about Bigfoot, and one of them started talking about it. I asked why you didn't tell me. They said that they didn't want to frighten us away. I told them that I was interested in this topic for a long time. Then they told their stories. 2 of the grandchildren were on their way to their grandmother's house the night before when they turned off the main highway and onto the old highway. About 50 yards into the old highway, the road makes a sharp left turn, and the old highway ends to the right. They saw the being right when they turned the corner. It was a large, hairy, long-armed figure that walked in front of their car, across the dead-end part of the road, and then crashed up the hill through the brush. As we all sat there and listened, they went on to Grandma's house, and we all believed them. Else's son-in-law suggested that we all go to the place where this happened and look for signs. Ellis is a hunter from Selawik, Alaska. I wanted to go, but I was still in my robe and pajamas, so I told them to go without me and come back later. Elle said that there were poop tracks, metadown grasses, and chicken feathers, but no bones or other bits of food. He thinks that the droppings I told him about don't come from a bear or any other animal he knows. They have seeds and plant parts in them and look like human poop, except that they are bigger and have more of them. We were on our way to Mescalero. Grandma said that in early August, she woke up early and saw a huge handprint on her dining room window, which is a big window that the table sits under. She went outside to clean it up so her grandchildren and other people wouldn't see it and be scared. Grandma is proud of her lily garden, and she said that something heavy stepped on the flowers. On August 24th, in the kitchen, I was told that howls and screams are common at night and that everyone has heard them but can't figure out what they are. Everyone also said that they have smelled bad smells when dogs that were tied up barked and barked all night. One night, while one of the granddaughters was watching TV in the living room, she looked out the window and saw something looking in at her. She could only say that it was big and had a lot of hair. The family says that strange noises and things started happening in their area around November 1996. This area has a lot of places to hide, like a wash or a rail where Grandma and her daughters like to hang out. What are you doing? They told me that now they were scared to do. They told me that it's because the river and other places are easy to get to. They don't think this is because of anything they did in an Indian way. Thanks for listening. I think this video might be interesting to you as well. If you've met or seen a Sasquatch and want to tell your story, you can do so here. Please send me an email to lynsmith@bigfoot.casefiles@mail.com. I'm hoping to hear from you soon.